All right, guys, here's another BG perspective. As always, leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can get notified every time we upload.
When I graduated from college, I wanted to know so badly what everyone was making, but I obviously wasn't asking people. So this is me telling you my career journey and what I've made. But the summer before college, I started at Amazon in an internship capacity. I think I got paid $3,000 for a whole summer. At the time, that felt like a lot of money to me. My family was also helping me with like living expenses. Basically, I blew the whole $3,000. When I graduated, I joined Amazon again. I tried to negotiate my salary, but essentially they were like, all new grads are making the same, so we're gonna give you $65K. That's the base salary. They also gave me stock, but I'm not gonna include that here because it just makes things more confusing. A year later, I moved to LA and I was making the same amount of money, and I worked there for 6 months until I moved into a different role at Amazon, still making the exact same amount of money. I might have gotten a little bit of a raise, so it was like $66,000. For that role, I was required to move back to Seattle, so I moved back with the same salary and I stayed there for probably 6 more months. And then I got a new job, which is actually my job now, and I've been in it for almost 3 years. But this pay bump was significant. Essentially, that's why I couldn't pass it up. And I also really wanted to be at this certain company, and I just felt a lot more confident in my financial position. Because I'm still at the company, I'm not going to share details of what I'm making now due to privacy. Hopefully this helps some of you guys and also just like is interesting to you.
In the spirit of salary transparency and all the videos that I've seen on TikTok, I'm going to walk you through what I've been making since graduating in April 2014 as a double major in accounting and business administration. So that first year, I started my job September 2014 as an audit associate at Deloitte, one of the big four public accounting companies, and that was $52,000. Got promoted in my second year to a senior audit associate. Basically a second year, $58,000 was my salary that year. Then I got fired the following year and I had to look for another job. Went to this company, this tech company in Oakland as a revenue accountant, where I was making $78,000 base salary and then $2,000 in stocks, putting me at about $80,000. Then I got promoted that following year to a senior revenue accountant, and I was making about $85,000 base, $3,000 in stocks, so put me about $88,000 in all in. Then I left shortly thereafter, November 2017, to be a senior revenue analyst at a small pre-IPO company, and I was making $90,000 with a 10% bonus, putting me at like $99,000 with just salary and bonus. And then the other component of this was options, and so that came out to about $8,000 when it finally got paid out. Not much, but it put me over 100K, which is great. Then I went December 2018. I became a revenue consultant. So basically, what I was doing full time, just doing it on my own, finding my own clients, and I started working for as a consultant for these large tech companies. I was charging anywhere between $90 to $150 an hour. And that put me at, December 2018, I think I made 200K. December 2019, I made about 250K. Then December 2020, I decided I landed a job at a small startup as a revenue manager, but I was the first revenue hire at that place, and I built out the team, which was great. I was making 150K base. They gave me some stock options, which they valued at 50K a year. And then they gave me a 5K signing bonus. So it was about 205K value each year. Now the stock options, until they go public, they aren't worth anything, but I saw it as an investment. Then finally, I left there after a couple years in June 2022, got my job as a senior manager of revenue accounting, where the base was 193,000 with a 25% bonus. Which was, I think that's 46,000, and then $50,000 in stocks every year. That puts me at about $290,000 or 300,000. So I hope that helps. If you want some career advice, make sure to hit that follow, leave a like, leave a comment. Love y'all.
Here's my salary history as a 25-year-old software engineer.
My first job was as a bagger at Publix. If you don't know what Publix is, it's like a grocery store. It was damn near child labor. They were paying me like $7.25 an hour. My second job was as a software engineering intern at Home Depot. They were paying me money. I was staying on Georgia Tech's campus. Like, it was fucking sick. It was dope. I was making $22 an hour. My third job was as a software engineering intern at Slack, like the communication company, which was really cool because that was the year they actually IPO'd. I was making $50 an hour. My third job was as a software engineer at Meta. Think Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp, blah, blah, blah. My job there was salaried, but I was making about $75 an hour. Follow for more tech content.
I can't find the comment, but somebody asked me how I got to my current salary. So here's how much I made in each corporate job. My first exposure to recruiting type of roles and my first real corporate job was in for-profit education. I worked for a school called Carrington College, which is a division of DeVry. Y'all, I had no idea how problematic for-profit education was back then, but I worked in career services. My job was to help graduates find jobs, and I made $18 an hour. I was only in this job for about 6 months. Then I went to Robert Half as a dedicated sourcer. So my job here was to pull resumes and schedule interviews all day long. It was incredibly boring, and I made $23 an hour. I did this job for probably, again, about 6 months, and then I was promoted into a full cycle recruiter. As a full cycle recruiter, I was doing temporary placements, means I was placing candidates on contract jobs, and I made about $28 an hour here. Again, I did this job for about 3 months, and then I promoted over to the direct hire side. As a direct hire recruiting manager, this was my first salary job. I made $65,000 in this role, and then you had the opportunity to earn commission based on your placements. My first year as a recruiting manager, I made about $90,000. So that included my $65,000 base plus the bonus commission that I made. So then I promoted into a division director. As a division director, I oversaw the direct hire team for my area, which was a total of 4 recruiters. I didn't get a pay increase with this job, but I did have the opportunity to earn overhead for my team. So I made my $65,000 salary plus any commission for deals that I booked, and then a 5% overhead for my team. My first year as a division director in this role, I made about $120,000. However, I was busting my butt. I probably worked like 60 hours a week in this role. I was in this role for about a year, and then I left Robert Half, and then I went to work for a competitor who recruited me out. I joined a small executive search firm, and as an executive recruiter, this job was terrible. I was so unhappy in this role, but I made $85,000 in base pay plus bonus. So my first year as an executive recruiter, I made about $150,000, but I was incredibly unhappy, dealt with a ton of microaggressions at this company, and I was laid off at the start of the pandemic. After getting laid off, I did some consulting for about a year and a half. It was the pandemic, no one was hiring, but I had some clients who needed some recruiting help. And so I was able to keep myself afloat doing some consulting for them. And I made about, probably about $85,000 my first year doing this. And then I took a full-time job in between my current job and consulting with a small creative services agency that I actually did not like either. And I made about $85,000 at that creative services agency. But the way that I've been able to continue to grow my salary is to not get too complacent in one place. So you need to be looking at moving about every year, year and a half if your current company is not promoting you, in order for you to continue to grow your salary. Don't get too complacent and relying on that 2 to 5%.
Now, what do you guys think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love seeing your feedback and reading about your own experiences too. It really helps others and allows us all to learn more. So if you're into diving deeper into topics that matter and sparking your curiosity and keeping it real every step of the way, hit that subscribe button because you're in the right place. Now let's get back to the perspectives.
This is how much money I've made as a product designer over the years. So I started off in college just designing my own startups for $0. When that didn't go anywhere and I was about to get married, I got a UX design internship that paid $14 an hour. I did that for about 4 months until I got a full-time offer, and they asked me, how much are you looking to be paid? I had no idea. So I was like, 55,000. They said, how about 65,000? I remember being so stoked. I took my wife to a fancy dinner that night. The next year they bumped me up to $75,000. Then later I got an offer from another company for $85,000. My company asked, how much would you have to be paid to stay? And I said $100,000. And they said, okay, we could do 90,000 now. And then when the new year comes, we'll get you up to 100,000. Well, the new year came and they never bumped me up. They didn't remember saying that. I should have got it in writing. A couple years later, I was bumped up to 118,000, and then later 129,000, and then I got a second full-time remote job that paid 130,000. So I was making around $260,000. And then I quit one of those jobs, so I was back to 130,000. And then last year, I left that company and went to a new company where now I'm making.
Here's how I job hopped my way from 55K to 160K. At age 22, I graduated from college with a starting salary of 55K, working as a research analyst at a healthcare marketing firm. The role didn't last long, and by the time I was 23, I was laid off due to lack of work. At 23, I ended up working at a hospital as a medical secretary for several months before I worked for my parents, and I was making 40K at the time. By 24, I was able to land a role paying about $78,000 a year at an industrial supply company. However, the culture was terrible, and I left when I was 25 and entered a master's program in Chicago. Due to school, I was working part-time in the university, making only 30K. At 26, I swapped the master's program for a wedding planning internship, but I was still working at the university, making 30K. By 27, I moved back to New Jersey to live with my parents as I had racked up $35,000 of credit card debt. So during this time, I worked for my mom, making $47,500 while trying to launch my wedding planning business. And so by 28, my wedding planning business was in full swing, and I was still working for my mom, so I was able to take home about 60K. At this time, I had fully paid off my credit card debt, and I moved to New York City. So by 29, I landed my first executive assistant / office manager role at a Series B tech startup. It was an in-person role, and they offered me $72,000 a year. I was only there for 6 months before I hopped to another Series B tech startup that offered me $92,500 at age 30, and I was solely an EA. By this time, I had closed my wedding planning business, which is actually perfect timing as COVID was about to hit. 31, I hopped to a music tech company that offered me $115,000 a year, where I was supporting the CEO and the president. But within 6 months of me starting there, the company went through an acquisition and my role was eliminated. And then when I was 32, I was able to join a fully remote health tech startup that offered me $145,000 a year. And currently at 33, I'm still at the same company. This will be my longest time in a role. And after 1 year, they raised my salary to 160K. And I love it here.
All right, so let's go through my salaries over the past 6 years as a data analyst. My very first job as a data analyst was at a nonprofit making $47,000. My next job was at a small healthcare analytics company making $63,000. One thing to note about that job is it was a contract to hire, so I was a contractor for 6 months, and then they hired me on full time. My next job was at a Fortune 500 company and I actually took a title decrease, if that's what you want to call it, to a junior data analyst, but my salary went up to $78,000. That position was also contract to hire, but then I got promoted after about 6 months, and then I was making $90,000 with a 10% bonus. After working in that position for 2 years, I got promoted to an analytics manager where I was making $125,000 with a 15% bonus. I think the biggest thing that really helped me make more money over those 5 years was switching careers after about a year or looking for promotions after about 1 year. That allowed me to make about a 20% or more jump at almost every job that I had.
Salary transparency, let's get into it. How I went from making $32K in my first corporate job out of college in 2021 to over tripling that in 2023 and making more of a 6-figure base salary. I just want to preface, I've been avoiding making this video. I've been asked to make this video and I haven't, but I want to help you guys. If this helps you guys in your career, that's why I'm making this. It feels weird for me to talk about money. It feels taboo. This is not normal for me. And I don't want to come across as like, oh, look at me, I'm so successful, because that is not at all what I mean. I just want to help you guys. And if this is helpful, then it's worth it at the end of the day. I can talk about some of the things I did in college to get me my first corporate job in a different video, because that's a whole nother story. But let's just say I got my first job offer right after I graduated. Like, I started a few days after I graduated college, and that offer was in marketing and it was for $32,000. At the time I just graduated college, I had no concept of money. Like, I didn't know what was a good salary and what wasn't. So for me, just getting a job offer, I was like, oh my God, yes. And I jumped right at it. And I'm really glad that I did, actually. Because while I wasn't making a lot of money for the corporate world, I was able to live. I was splitting a 1-bedroom apartment with my ex-boyfriend, and I learned a ton in that job. And I did end up getting a raise 6 months in to I think 38 or maybe 40,000. However, after about 8 months there, I really decided I wasn't happy anymore and I really wanted to make more money. So I quit that job with no other job lined up. Don't take that advice from me. I was just very unhappy. And I decided I was going to go into tech sales because it's very easy to get into tech sales at an entry-level position. And I was like, maybe marketing isn't for me. So I applied to Oracle NetSuite, and that is where I got my second job. I was a business development representative at Oracle NetSuite, and my base pay was 50 grand, but I had some opportunity to make commission, but it definitely was a big jump from my first salary. Also, I forgot to mention, but during this time, as I was trying to find a new job, I was really updating my LinkedIn and fluffing my LinkedIn, really trying to make myself look as professional as possible because I really only had like 9 months of real work experience, but I was really trying to find a new job. Anyways, I worked at Oracle for 3 months. I realized cold calling and tech sales wasn't for me. I wasn't happy and must have been a sign from God or something, but I actually got recruited directly to TikTok in my LinkedIn DMs. However, I blame getting recruited to TikTok on LinkedIn based on like how much I was updating my profile and fluffing my profile and making my experience look really good. So I don't think I would have gotten recruited to TikTok if it wasn't for the fact that like my LinkedIn was very updated with like a lot of data to back it up. So I leave Oracle after 3 months, which I know that's not the best look, but TikTok was going to pay me a little bit more. So of course I was going to jump at that opportunity, and working for TikTok was literally a dream for me. Like I couldn't believe it. So I did end up leaving Oracle very quickly, which I know that's not a good look, but I had an opportunity come up that like I just could not pass up. I'm not going to share exactly how much I made at TikTok because I just left the company and that's just a little bit too fresh. But I ended up working at TikTok for a year and 9 months and I just left. I'm not going to share my exact salary in my new role either, but you can kind of do the math and guesstimate that it is around like 6 figures. Also, I am back to working in marketing, just at a more like senior level. So that's my career journey to now. I just wanted to share that so you guys kind of have a timeline, but now we'll get into the actual advice. The first piece of advice and why I just shared that entire timeline is that the way I ended up making more money in such a short amount of time was that I switched roles and I accepted new offers, obviously. Now, I'm not saying work at a job for 3 months and quit. That is not the best look, and I know that, and I do still kind of feel bad about that, but what I'm saying more is like work at a company for a certain amount of time, maybe a year, put in your time, do good work, and if you aren't happy or you do want more money or you do want to leave, start looking at other opportunities and see, what you can do. I think a lot of people get really comfortable in their roles and they get, little raises every year, year and a half, and it ends up not being that much over a long period of time. Whereas if you work at a company for a year, 2 years, you put in good work and you leave for another company, the chance of you being able to accept an offer that is significantly higher than what you were making at that first company is much larger. I'm not saying this is always the case, but in my situation it was. So first and foremost, I really recommend trying a few different jobs in your 20s. Don't necessarily get comfortable and stay in the same job forever if one of your priorities is to make more money. If one of your priorities is to stay at the company and maybe grow into senior leadership, which of course can lead into more money eventually, then definitely do it. Like if that is what you want. But in my case, I wanted to make enough money to be able to live comfortably, live alone, and I had to do what I had to do. Like I had to transition jobs a lot. Probably my second piece of advice would be to frame your resume with as much data as you can. Like you can write a little sentence that, I supported the team in X, Y, and Z. But a company wants to see data. They want to see how your help drove revenue. They want to see how your help and support drove results. Like whatever data you can stack in your resume, stack it, because that is what people look for at the end of the day. But I can make like a whole nother video about resumes because that's like a whole nother thing. My third piece of advice, definitely if you're starting out new in the corporate world, is like diversify your skills. So like I went in like more of a marketing role and did some like account management and paid ads in my first job. Then I went into tech sales. Then I went into more of like a sales role at TikTok where I was kind of doing more like consulting and ads. And now I'm in more of like a actual like strategy role. However, my point is, when you're early in your career, try to diversify your different skill sets. So like I got some experience in paid ads, I got some experience in sales, I got some experience in account management on all these different sections, which I feel like really help diversify my resume, my LinkedIn, everything, and just my skill sets. So that way you just have a much larger pool of options as to what you can do early in your career. Fourth piece of advice, as hard as this is probably take that low paying entry level job. And I know that's hard, like trust me, I've been there, it was hard, but I learned so much in that role for one. And two, like you do have to start somewhere. And I think when I came out of college, I was like, I hope I get a job that pays me 60, 70, 80K. But like in retrospect, there's so many people competing for those roles, especially if you were in a major like mine, which is like marketing and advertising. Like I wasn't like in finance or business or computer science, you know what I mean? Like I was in the advertising school. So you kind of might have to, for a year, take that low paying job and maybe like live at home or live with roommates if you can, just to get that experience under your belt. So that opens more doors for you salary wise. But like if I never went through that, I would definitely never be where I am in my career today. Like a lot of the experience I learned in my first role is what translated into my role at TikTok. I wouldn't have gotten my role at TikTok without that first job. So So you might have to take that low paying job for a little while. And then I promise you, as long as you're working on your resume and your LinkedIn and diversifying your skills and framing yourself correctly and working on your interview skills and all that, like you will be able to move up. Also, you have to ask for raises. I know people have heard this, but like no company is just gonna be like, hey, here's a raise. Like every single company I've been at, I have had to ask, I have had to work, I've had to re-bring up the conversation in order to get pay raises or whatever it might be. Like you have to speak up. So becoming versed in how to talk about salary and how to ask for what you want in the right way is very important because no company is just gonna hand you it. At least it's highly unlikely. But again, my biggest piece of advice is don't stay in the same job forever unless you really love it and you're super happy or you really want to get into senior leadership and you see a clear path for yourself. I would say don't do it. Work there, give the company good work, be there for a year, be there for 2 years, 3, whatever, but like eventually look into switching roles because also that's going to diversify your skill set. You're going to learn so much by switching companies. Like it's crazy how much I learned in like 3 years just based off being at different companies. And you're likely going to make more money. I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry this was so long, but if you guys want me to make more videos on this kind of stuff or you have questions, just comment down below and I'm happy to talk more about career stuff and salary and all that.
I've seen so many salary transparency videos on my For You page recently that here is what I've been making. I had to write this down because I am a job hopper. Graduated college, summer 2019 as a double major in business management and economics. My first job starting June 2019, I was making $57,000 a year. I started out as a business analyst for this consulting company, ended up moving clients, and after a year, I got a 5% raise to $60,000 a year. And then at that point, I was a project coordinator. So at that company, I was there for 2 years, bumped up $3,000 in that time there. I decided I wanted to leave. I went to work for a tech startup. And my title there was Agile Coordinator, which was a combination business analyst and Scrum Master. And there I was making $78,000 a year. It was a 30% raise. It felt amazing. Didn't last long though. 11 months in, the company had to lay off 50% of their staff. They're not even in business anymore. So got laid off. And then later that summer, July 2022, started a new job as an associate product owner at a different tech company. They paid me $95,000. I got a $5,000 stock sign-on bonus and a 5% bonus if the company hit their targets. The company was bought out, so luckily my stock paid out right away, and then I got laid off after 6 months of being there. And so at that point, I took a couple months to job search, and then in June 2023, accepted a job as a product owner 2 at an insurance company. And there I was making $94,000 with a 10% bonus. I was hoping that the 10% bonus would then help me actually make more than I had in my previous role. But we did not meet our bonus targets. So it was actually a pay cut from my last job to that one. And then I quit that job 3 months ago after being there for 9 months. I'm clearly a job hopper. I can admit that now that I'm not in corporate America, but I got laid off twice. That wasn't my fault. And so now I work for myself, and we'll see what I end up making this year. I'm sure I'll post it because that's the kind of person I am.
Let's break down my salary progression in every role that I've had working in AI and ML. So in 2019, I had my first internship, and that was a data science internship working at a really small financial firm, and I was making $15 an hour. 2020, the next summer, I was working for a lab, which I was not expecting to get paid at all. Somehow they had this grant that means that I got paid, and I got paid $18 an hour. I ended up working for the full year through my junior year of college, and I got a raise about halfway through to $20 an hour, which was very exciting. Then in 2021, I got my first real corporate internship as a data scientist, and that was $50 an hour. So in 2022, when I graduated, I accepted a full-time offer for that same role, and my offer for that was $110K with a $30K sign-on bonus. Because I was part of a program, everything was standardized, so a couple weeks later, I actually got a call back from my recruiter, and she said that my package had been increased. I assume this is because someone else negotiated it, but they had to give it to everybody else. They told me they did some market research. So my actual starting salary ended up being $125 base with a $30K sign-on bonus and then a guaranteed 15K bonus at the end of the year. For 2023, my base salary was 130K, and I got that 15K signing bonus in like January or February of 2023. This year, 2024, I'm currently making 135K, and I had an end of year bonus from last year of 25K that I got February of this year. So my total comp this year is 160K as someone who has 2 years of experience working in AI/ML. Start learning your data science, work on your projects, follow along for tips on how to get there, and follow along for more content like this. Bye.
So that's it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And as always, stay tuned for the next video. Peace.